She was not just a queen. She was a strategist, a survivor, a woman who stood between empires. In a world ruled by powerful men, she didn't just compete, she dominated. Her name, Cleopatra. But history has often reduced her story to beauty and romance. The truth is far more dangerous and far more fascinating. Before we dive deep into the real story behind one of history's most misunderstood rulers, take a second to support the channel. If you enjoy powerful storytelling like this, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the stories we bring are not just history, they're experiences. Now let's step into ancient Egypt. Cleopatra was born in 69 BC. But here's the twist. She wasn't Egyptian. Her family came from Greece, descendants of one of Alexander the Great's generals. For nearly 300 years, they ruled Egypt as outsiders, speaking Greek, living in luxury, and often ignoring the people they governed. Egypt at this time was no longer the powerful empire it once was. It was rich, but fragile. And above all, it was under the shadow of a rising superpower, Rome. From the moment Cleopatra was born, her fate was already tied to political instability, betrayal, and survival. The royal palace wasn't a home, it was a battlefield. In Cleopatra's family, power was everything, and loyalty meant nothing. Brothers married sisters. Alliances shifted overnight, and murder was often the solution. When Cleopatra was just 18 years old, her father died. And according to tradition, she was forced to rule alongside her younger brother, who was also her husband. But this wasn't a partnership. It was a silent war. Her brother's advisors saw her as a threat. And soon enough, she was forced into exile. At just 21 years old, Cleopatra lost everything. Her throne, her power, and her place in Egypt. But she wasn't finished. Not even close. While Cleopatra was in exile, a powerful Roman leader arrived in Egypt, Julius Caesar. Rome was in the middle of its own civil war, and Egypt was a strategic prize. Cleopatra saw an opportunity, but she needed access to Caesar, and her enemies controlled the palace. So she made one of the most famous moves in history. Legend says she had herself secretly smuggled into the palace, wrapped in a carpet, and delivered directly to Caesar. When the carpet was unrolled, Cleopatra emerged. Not as a victim, but as a queen. It worked. Caesar was impressed, not just by her presence, but by her intelligence and boldness. Together, they formed an alliance. With Roman support, Cleopatra defeated her brother and reclaimed the throne. But this alliance came with a price. Cleopatra and Caesar became more than political allies. They became partners. She gave birth to a son, Caesarion. For Cleopatra, this wasn't just a child. It was a symbol of power, and a possible future where Egypt and Rome were united. She even traveled to Rome, living as a foreign queen in the heart of the empire. But Rome was unstable, and in 44 BC, everything changed. Julius Caesar was assassinated. Suddenly, Cleopatra lost her most powerful ally, and once again she was alone in a dangerous world. After Caesar's death, Rome was divided. One of the most powerful men to rise from the chaos was Mark Antony. Cleopatra knew what she had to do. She met Antony in a display of pure theatrical brilliance, arriving on a grand barge, dressed like goddess, surrounded by luxury and spectacle. But this wasn't just seduction. It was strategy. Antony needed wealth. Cleopatra needed protection. Their alliance turned into a powerful partnership, and eventually, a romantic one. Together, they ruled the Eastern Mediterranean. But in Rome, their power was seen as a threat. A man named Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, began to turn the Roman people against them. The stage was set for a final war. The final battle came at Actium. Cleopatra and Antony faced Octavian's forces in a decisive naval war. But something went wrong. In the middle of the battle, Cleopatra's fleet retreated. Antony followed. And just like that, the war was lost. Their power collapsed. Octavian advanced into Egypt. Antony, believing Cleopatra was dead, took his own life. But she was still alive. Captured, alone, defeated. Cleopatra knew what awaited her: humiliation, imprisonment, and being paraded in Rome as a trophy. She refused. Instead, she chose her own ending. In 30 BC, Cleopatra died, most likely by poison. With her death, the age of ancient Egypt ended. Rome took control, and the last true pharaoh was gone. But Cleopatra's story didn't end there. For centuries, she has been remembered as a symbol of beauty. But the truth is far more powerful. She was a master of strategy, a brilliant political mind, and a ruler who fought until the very end. Not just for love, but for power, survival, and her kingdom. And that is the real story of Cleopatra. If you want more stories like this, deep, cinematic, and unforgettable, don't forget to subscribe and join the journey. Because history is never just the past. It's the story of power,